And finally, two-time gold medal winner in speed skating in this year's Winter Olympics, Jordan Stolz. Where the hell is that? Whoa. Oh. That's pretty good. Whoa. Stand up. Stand up. Yeah. USA! 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 I'm keeping it. I'm keeping it, Jordan. I'm not giving it back. I'm a very good guy for keeping gold. I like gold. I'm never giving this back. Congratulations. I forgot to touch his leg. I didn't want to do that. But I can tell you one thing. His leg is like a rock. That's fantastic. 2 gold medals. Wow, that's big stuff. Thank you. It's an honor. And speaking for my other athlete up here, that's pretty good, right? 2. And you go through big competition with a lot of great athletes, right? Are you going to be doing?
I think I don't care what anyone says. I think he is one of the most, not entertaining, but he is the most accessible president in our lifetime. Hello, Comanche County GOP. I'm Rarchar Tortorello, along with my good friend Sharla Hildner. Sharla, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Hey, I have to say, there's something about an 80-year-old man saying "brah."
There's a 50-year-old man who says that a lot, and so when you're amongst friends, that's okay to say. So there's a lot going on here in DC, and been back on my trip for a couple of days, and it just seems like I would say the jet lag just drags me, but it really doesn't. I'm really caught up on time, even though we're only one time zone away. The trips are always good. And every time, and we're at the White House, I'm at the White House, we have a lot of things going on at the Capitol. America's 250th anniversary birthday party bash is coming up next month. We have the June 16th primaries happening. Early voting starts next week, or this week actually, right? Thursday and Friday.
Starts Thursday and Friday and Saturday.
So the election cycle this time, the midterms, I think we're going to see heavy participation on both Republican and Democrat sides. I think it's very exciting. We have a lot of things that we talked about in the past. State question 832, the minimum wage, is going to be on the ballot on the 16th as well. We have the governor's race, the lieutenant governor's race, the AG's race, the auditor's race, the treasurer's race, and just about every race that you can imagine. I think this has been our most busiest time, Sharla.
It has been crazy busy. And I was looking back, I remember back in 25, looking into the 2026 forecast. So, like, we are going to be so busy. But I really think and hope that through the support of the OKGOP and Trump and his team getting out, I think we're good. This is going to be a primary where Republicans actually finally show up. We're gonna be there. We're gonna be at the polls this week.
Oh, I think we're going to see the numbers this time around be astronomical, and only because I believe that this is the elephant in the room, the Trump endorsement for governor of Oklahoma, that's caused all sides, the Gettner, the McCall, the Keating, the Jake Merrick team, to get their people to get out the votes. And it's always nice to have that Trump endorsement. Look what happened in Texas. The guy's winning. He's batting 1,000, as they say in baseball. And no matter what happens, we do have great candidates running for that position. And I would say to everyone listening tonight is find the one you like, and so if that's the one if Macy's the one you have always liked, vote for him. If you're a Jake Merrick fan, vote for him. Chip Keating is awesome. He'd make a great governor as long as with Charles McCall. But get out there, support your team, and what I don't like to see is this bashing back and forth. Just promote your candidates. But I will think, and I'm going to we'll look at the numbers afterwards, that this will be the the largest amount of Republican primary voters. It will exceed the last time because of the governor's race and that Trump endorsement. We're going to see people early vote more, and then get out to participate in the primary on June 16th. Sharla, do you agree or disagree?
Oh, I think that this mix of governors that we have to choose from has made it really difficult to choose a candidate. I can find something that I like about in every one of them. But I think that Oklahoma is going to see the impact of conservative grassroots voters this election. I think they're really going to make a significant impact. I think their voice is finally going to be heard. And I think it's time that. I'd like for the party to finally let's shake off the dust and shake hands and let's all get together and get around the table and talk about the things that we do agree on, because there's so much that we agree on than that what we don't.
Yeah, and you know what? That's been the theme of this show and the shows is that find the 80% you agree on and stop attacking each other over the stupid 20%. There's no one, maybe with exception of God and Jesus, that we agree 100% on. But I want Republicans to put down their swords and raise their shields together and go into this election season and come out as friends. And like I said, we always can find the 80%. But what I don't like is how we treat each other over the 20%. And our goal is to bring voters and elected officials together, like on this podcast, for conversations about issues that matter the most to the county and to the state. Tonight, I think I don't think, we're pleased to welcome Oklahoma State Senator Dusty Deevers, who represents District 32, to the show tonight. We'll discuss his service. Uh, Dusty, are you with us? There you go, Dusty. How are you doing, Dusty?
I'm better than I deserve. It's good to be with you guys tonight. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you represent Senate District 32, and we'll go into
Don't
the
see him
whole
yet.
thing about. He's there. Are you with us? There you go. Dusty, can you see us and hear us? Very good.
I can see you and hear you. Yes.
Yeah, so he is running again for Senate District 32, and we'll discuss his service in the Oklahoma Senate, the legislation he's authored, and his work with the Freedom Caucus and the issues facing Southwest Oklahoma. As always, we want this to be an interactive discussion. If you're watching live, we encourage you to post your questions in the comments below. We'll monitor the chats on Facebook and YouTube throughout the podcast. And if you have opportunity to ask questions during the program, do ask them. I do ask that you make them intelligent. Don't come here asking. You know what I'm talking about. We don't want those type of questions. Just ask intelligent questions of the candidate, and we'll post them and he'll answer them. Before we begin, I'll turn it back over to my co-host, Sharla.
Well, thank you, Rarchar. As many of you or listeners know, early voting begins with this election day rapidly approaching, and many voters are still considering the candidates and issues that will appear on their ballot. Tonight's conversation is intended to help voters make an informed decision before they cast their vote. We're joined by Senator Dusty Deevers, the current senator for District 32, and the only candidate in the Senate District 32 race to receive the Oklahoma Republican Party certification. Senator, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, I'm honored to join you guys and looking forward to the conversation.
So, for those of you listeners who may not know you, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your family, your faith, and what led you to seek public office? And I have to say, you got to talk about the grandbaby. I didn't know you were a grandfather already, so that was news to me this week.
Yeah, that's she's 9 months old, and actually my son's wife is pregnant again, and they are getting
Oh,
ready to find out the gender of the baby. So or the sex of the baby. So we're looking forward to hearing what that might be. But yes, my name is Dusty Deevers. I'm the current state senator. It's just been such an honor to serve our district. I'm from Elgin. I was raised in Comanche County here and graduated from Elgin High School back in 1996. And then I went and played baseball at Bacone Junior College and then went to Oklahoma City University and played baseball there, graduated with a biology degree. And then after college, I went down to Texas and started a whole bunch of home health care agencies. And while I was doing that, I decided that the Lord was calling me to ministry. And through a lot of counselors and others who were encouraging me in that direction, I went to Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary and graduated with a Master's of Divinity with biblical languages, Greek and Hebrew. And while I was there, I ran a hotel and conference center and helped start 3 churches. And then I went on staff of that church, one of the churches that we started. And then in 2013, we moved back to Elgin, and I took over running the pharmacy there in Elgin Discount Pharmacy for my father. He started that in 1982. And the church that I was on staff at also sent me to plant a church here. And so we did plant a church. And then 10 years ago, a couple of weeks ago, actually, we merged it with First Baptist Church in Elgin. And, I wanted to come back, and God provided a way for us to come back. And so, yes, my wife and I have been married for 22 years now, and we have 6 children and 2 grandchildren. And you ask about my faith. My faith is central to all that I am. It's not compartmentalized. I look to Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and I believe that He is Lord over all things, not just Sunday mornings, but my family, work, law, government, public life, everything. And that reality means that I see that government is not God. And so we didn't get our rights from government. We didn't get our rights from the state. And that's how our nation was founded, to protect our God-given and unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And others saw that as happiness is tied to your property ownership. And so government has limits, and its duty is to protect people's God-given rights. And it's not to become Lord over those people's rights or to write doctrines and commandments of men that would crush the people and their rights. So, I decided to run back in 23, whenever I ran for office then. I decided to run even back then because in 2020 during COVID, all the lockdowns and the mandates, I watched government officials really use fear and pressure tactics as a license to trample our basic God-given liberties instead of protect them. And, churches were pressured or shut down. Many of the members of our church and military were being just overrun by all these mandates, and they were forcing them against their own liberties. These were healthy, innocent people, and small businesses were threatened while all these big box stores stayed open. They were saying who was essential and who wasn't. And in my estimation, every dinner table is essential. Every father is essential. Every mother is essential. And so the government didn't have the right to do that. So whenever that started happening, families were isolated, medical decisions were politicized, and people were told that they had to obey first and then ask questions later. So I began going to city council meetings and speaking out against these tyrannical decisions. I didn't, the way I've read history, because I started studying history a long time ago and reading our founding fathers and the ideas that framed their minds. And what I understood was that government didn't have the authority from God or the Constitution to strip innocent, healthy people's God-given rights from them, to alienate them from them. And so that moment and that time in 2020 really clarified a lot of things for me, and that liberty is not safe if the only people in office are those who will defend it when it's easy to defend. Under pressure, will they defend your rights? So I went to several of those city council meetings, and one of those was the Lawton City Council meeting. And I spoke against them continuing the lockdown and the mandates. And I told them, you don't have jurisdiction from our Constitution or from God to do this. And if you do it, you will be tyrants by definition. You're usurping God's role over these people's lives and these people's freedoms. And on the other side of me was one of my opponents back in 2023, and one of my opponents now, who spoke in favor of the lockdowns and the mandates. And I'll tell you, there was a very personal effect that those lockdown and mandates had on my own family, not to mention the hundreds of thousands of others, millions of others, let's be honest. My dad had dementia, Alzheimer's, and he got really bad, and we had to have him in a facility when those lockdowns came in, that were from our local city council in Lawton. They wouldn't even let me go and see him. I had to wave at him through a window. I couldn't go in and give him the hugs and the care and the provision that he needed. My mom couldn't. And it was, I thought it was just a travesty. And it was due to tyrannical decisions, not upholding people's freedoms. If people want to wear a mask, if they wanted to get vaccinated, if they wanted to close their business down, I felt like that should have been a personal decision, not a forced mandate from the government. So that's why I ran, and I wanted to ensure, and I'm still doing the same, to ensure that Oklahoma and Southwest Oklahoma has leaders who will never again allow emergency powers to become a weapon against the people. So I didn't run to become a part of the political class. I ran to represent the people, especially when it's necessary.
I
That's
think
a
I found
similar
that interesting. I
story.
didn't.
Yes, but yeah, go ahead, Charlotte, and then I'll jump in.
Well, I want Rashar and I both have a COVID story, and most people know I lost two brothers 4 days apart from COVID in two separate hospitals
Mm,
in Tulsa, and we were
mm,
not allowed to be by their side when we lost them. So
that's
I think that was a motivation for a lot of people, and it's a worthy motivation to get involved and pay attention to what our government's doing. Um, Rashar, you were going to add something?
Now, I was going to say that a lot of politicians decided to run for office during the COVID shutdowns here
mm,
and around the nation. I remember, before I ran for city council in 2020, um, not just the COVID shutdowns, but the defunding of the police happened here in Norman, Oklahoma,
Yeah,
which, prompted us to create the fastest, largest growing at the time grassroots conservative movement to recall the mayor and the city council members who were up for reelection who voted to defund the police. And that's how I got my
mm,
start in politics. I had no intention of running for office. I retired
mhm,
after 20 years of being shot at and blown up and in the wars in the military in 2007, and didn't have my eyes looking at anything until we ran against the absurdity that the state can dictate that you have to shut down your business. I remember when everything was shut down. Don't forget, I was still doing work. For those that don't recall, on this show for the VA, I appealed disability claims to the VA. That was my primary job. And I had a client, a 94-year-old widow, who survived everything, but she caught COVID. And this is one thing that this town and the state will have to live with for the rest of their lives. And she caught COVID from a VA nurse assistant that came to her house, and she would have survived. But they took her to the hospital. I remember this on a Friday, Thursday night, and I talked to the family, and the doctors were saying they might have to intubate her. And I said, don't tell
mm,
them, do not
mm,
put her on a breathing treatment. Um, they intubated her on a Monday, and she passed away on a Wednesday. And
mm,
the shame of all that was that her family, because they had to separate and create a ward, the COVID ward, was not allowed to be in the room with her. And I'm going to say with the spirit, I don't care, if we're unconscious, we do feel the spirit, we do feel our friends and family around us. But I think for the majority of the people who could not be there for their loved ones, and not be there in their final moments, is
mm,
something that so everyone said run. I ran. I won in a 4-man race, but never again will the state trample our freedoms by
mhm,
imposing restrictions on this. And I applaud everybody who ran for office because of that. On council, I was one of the guys that did not mask up. I
mm,
was one of the guys that did not vaccinate. Even though they said you have to wear the mask, I said no. It's my freedom, and I refuse to do it. But that's the price we pay to live in a free society. And I have always applauded and stood behind men of character and women. Glad to have you back, Sharla. Men and women who stand by what they say when they're running for office. So,
Yeah.
I have a question for you. So we see a lot of folks, and look, this is a conservative show. This is a Republican show. When you're running for office,
Amen.
I can say that what I've seen so far of you, when you are knocking doors saying, I'm running for District 32, right? And basically, when you won that seat, I don't think you've gone back where people say, well, he ran on this position, but now he's not. He's not following through. So for me, I hate when our side does that. We have we call them rhinos. But for you, is this a values thing that made you do this? Were you like this before you became a state senator? And I know I'm going into Sharla's area here, because did you change when you got into office? When you ran the first time and you're running again, are you going to stay who you are for as long as the people of that county keep putting their support behind you?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And here's what I did whenever I first ran. I told people what I believed. If they ask me a question, I'm going to shoot them straight. And if they want to elect me based on what I believe and what I say I was going to do, then so be it. They would elect me. If they didn't want to, then they wouldn't elect me. But I was not going to bait and switch anyone. I was not going to the Capitol because I wanted fame, I wanted status, I wanted wealth. I didn't want anything from the Capitol except to take up to the Capitol the rights and to protect the rights and freedoms of our people. I wanted to take the voice of our district, if they elected me, to the Capitol and not bend away from it, not to go up to the Capitol and turn my yellow belly over and have it scratched by the political establishment and then let them drag me around by a leash, because that is not representing my district. If I went up and I told them my positions very clearly, they gave me 9 bills my first session. I ran my platform. I wrote bills that were according to my platform. I told people what I was going to do, and I did it. And then last year, I ran 54 bills, and I had 15 heard in committee, and 11 of those or 12 of those passed committee. And I stood firm on what I said I was going to do. This year, I ran 45 bills. I had several pass committee, and I have not bait and switched anyone. If people in my district want a legislator like me who's going to hold firm to my convictions and is going to stand with courage and a backbone against the capital culture, then they'll reelect me. If they don't want me to be up there and with my values, then they won't. And I'm content in the Lord. I'm not going up to the Capitol to get something for my political future. That's not it at all. I'm going up there because I believe that God has called me to obey him and to serve the people with joyfulness and gladness of heart as I serve the Lord, and to trust him. Obedience is ours, results belong to God. I don't have to bend the knee to anyone if I trust the Lord. And so I've been just thrilled by some of my time up there. It's been incredible to get to serve our community. I am a servant. Romans 13:1 tells us that those who are civil magistrates, who God has ordained for political office, are diakonos. They are deacons of the people from God. And that's the core of the republic form of government, that we are a republic and we govern by the consent of the people, and we are servants of the people. And so that is what I've tried to hold up, and not to force people to bend the knee towards whatever the Capitol wants.
Well, that's why people respect
Senator,
you.
I
So
have a question for you.
Okay.
You're a member of the Oklahoma Freedom Caucus. For listeners unfamiliar with it, what is the Freedom Caucus, and is it different than Republican caucus and how?
Yeah. So the Freedom Caucus it started in the House, at the congressional level, and
mhm.
it was the North Star for conservative politics across there at the House. And then it started in multiple chapters across the states, and it has become, across the numerous states that it's in, the North Star for conservative politics. And when we say conservative, we are conserving our founding principles. Whenever our Constitution was written, it wasn't written right or left. It was, these are the things that if we can keep this republic, we will establish these very principles. These are God-given rights and freedoms, and we must protect them. So we're committed to restoring constitutional conservatism at the Capitol. Now, there are a lot of politicians that run as conservatives, and they talk about faith and family and freedom and lower taxes and limited government and parental rights, and they talk about the Constitution. They knock doors and campaign like they're Tom Coburn, but then they end up legislating like they're Mitt Romney. And once they get to the Capitol, many of those same people vote for bigger government, bloated budgets. We just had passed a $12.8 billion budget this year. They vote for more corporate welfare and handouts to multinational, multi-billion dollar corporations as though they need it. And our middle class and our small businesses don't get those handouts. They vote for weak social policy and more centralized control. And the Freedom Caucus exists to hold that line. We fight for limited government, for lower taxes, for parental rights and sanctity of human life and Second Amendment rights and religious liberty and budget transparency. We expose whenever there's more spending, whenever there should be more cuts, to administrative bloat. We stand for agency accountability and state sovereignty, states' powers according to the 10th Amendment, and the protection of the common man against the political machine. So at its best, the Freedom Caucus is a voice for the people who do not have lobbyists. We are functionally the lobbyists, the voice for the common man, the farmer, the rancher, the small business owner, the parents, the taxpayer, the teacher in the classroom, the family who's trying to pay the bills. Those people, the people that you and I know so well, those people need someone inside the Capitol who's willing to say, no, the government doesn't get to keep taking more and spending more and regulating more and hiding more and calling it conservative. So we're there to force the hard conversations and the hard questions and to let the people know what's happening inside their Capitol and oftentimes behind closed doors. And so we have to ask those questions. Does it grow government? Does it violate liberty? Who pays for it? Who benefits from it? Is it constitutional? Does this serve the people or insiders? And the Freedom Caucus is not there at the Capitol to make the Capitol comfortable, to make lobbyists comfortable. It's there to make the Capitol accountable to we the people.
Good question. I got to ask you. So there was a petition. I think it's still being circulated. And for those of you who know, we are live tonight. I am broadcasting directly from Shea Kish. And so there's a lot of things going on in the background. But we'd like to thank you for showing up tonight with Dusty Deevers to ask these questions. And there's been a lot of questions coming through the chat. But the petition, I can't recall the title of it, but basically it would allow and force the state leadership to hear all bills. So was there a situation or an instance where this we had no bills that were allowed to come to a vote?
I think you're
this
talking
petition
about,
affect you? Is it
I
840?
think, yes, 840, state question 840.
Yes.
I think it's asking for, if I'm not mistaken, 3 bills for every legislator. And here's
Yes.
here's the core of that. If you've read Charles Key's book, Stolen Government, Charles Key was a legislator, and he wrote a book after his time at the Capitol. And he put his finger on what the core problem is, on why there is so little good legislation passed, and why We have a broken system. And this is a major issue across the state. And it's one of those issues that so few people really know why the system is so broken. Okay. My first session, I ran on this platform that we needed equal representation for every district across the state. Every citizen of Oklahoma is equally Oklahoman, and they deserve their voice to be heard, not whether they live in the urban area or whether their legislator is closest to the lobbyists or to the big money players. That doesn't make you qualified for your voice to be heard. You are a citizen. You are a voter. You are qualified to have your voice heard. And when you go vote, you do so as a constitutional republic. You have representative forms. So you go vote, you elect leaders who then take your voice to the Capitol. But whenever you get to the Capitol, it functions as an oligarchy. And here's what I mean. The oligarchy is another term for mob rule or the power of a few. It's not a republic form. It's not even a democracy. Here's what happens at the Capitol. The way the Senate rules are written is that your bill is turned in and then it's designated to a committee. And that committee chair has control over your legislation. What that means is the committee chair has the authoritative power over your district's voice. And if that committee chair doesn't like the bill or he doesn't like you because you didn't vote for the right pro tem, then your bill will not be heard. Okay? If it is heard and it passes in the committee, then there's another choke point with power. And that next choke point is the floor leader's team, and the pro tem stands over both of those, the floor leader and the committee. And the pro tem's agenda is what's adhered to. So if the floor leader doesn't like you or your legislation or whatever, he or she has dictatorial power to determine that your bill cannot be heard. Okay? I ran on that platform that everybody in our state, when they elect an official, they are electing their voice, and that voice deserves to be heard at the Capitol so that we will have an actual republic form of government. And whenever my first session, my executive assistant, Brady Butler, who's now running for office, and I wrote a 66-page rules package that we call the Golden Rules, because we think, as the Golden Rule says, love your neighbor as yourself. And we are saying, love your neighbor's district and constituents as you love your own. And that means treat them equally like you want to be treated. So that's what's going on. And State Question 840 just wants some crumbs even. But my position was that every citizen deserves to have their elected voice to be heard, and we need to stop muzzling the districts across our state because we didn't vote for the pro tem, or they don't like that we expose what's happening at the Capitol and how the lobbyists have so much power and have these multinational corporations have so much power. That's got changed.
Well, I do hope they get enough signatures. I don't know where that's at in the process, but before, I think Sharla has another question on the Freedom Caucus. But before we switch back to that question, why do you think an oligarch? I smirk when you use that word, but why does a system exist at the state capitol to necessitate a state question to basically force the leadership to allow all the bills heard? I mean, it seems counterintuitive as a representative to your county, to the state, that some people may be put on a shelf for some reason. So you don't have to say it, but why do we need to have a state question that would tell the leadership to do what I think most Oklahomans would agree is common sense? Let everyone have their bills be heard.
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons. Number one, when the people and their voices are muzzled, then the people have a duty, because government serves at the consent of the governed, the people have a duty to go and take action. And this is an actionable step for them to say, we want to pass a state question, we want to get it on the ballot, and we want to vote whether we can have at least 3 bills heard in committee. Now, when they're heard in committee, vote them up or vote them down. But they are saying, at least let us have a voice and stop muzzling us through your oligarchy, through your dictatorship. That's one reason, because the people are fed up and they recognize that there is a power structure and they ain't in it. And number two, because the Senate has not voted to change the rules. Right now, when you look back at our pro tem vote last year, that pro tem vote was the difference of one vote from us having a conservative, actual proven conservative pro tem versus the one that we have now. When you want to measure those, you can look at the freedomindex.us. You can look at the Oklahoma Constitution scorecard. These are two scorecards that judge how the voting record on whether we hold to our constitutional conservative values. And you look at that, the leadership at the Capitol is 46, 45% or lower on that. I scored 100%. There were 3 other Freedom Caucus members that scored 100%. That's the difference of what we've got going on. We were 1 vote away this year. So, and let me back up. I argued for about 3 hours in total on changing the rules so that people would have that legislators and districts would have the equal number of bills heard in committee. And that doesn't mean they're going to pass, but there's a major power shift whenever you aren't running the Senate by fear and retaliation and retribution and whether you will kiss the ring to the power structure that be, because if you don't, they will retaliate. They will gin up lobbyists and dark money packs, and they will start money flowing to your districts and tell people that you're an ineffective legislator. Well, how are you? If you're just equating effectiveness with only passing bills, well, guess what?
Right,
they hold
right.
the levers of power. They want you to look ineffective, even if you're one of the most effective, most articulate, most conservative, and down the line have held to our principles. They don't want you up there because you're a threat to the establishment. You're a threat to the power structure. They don't want people looking behind the curtain and actually seeing what's happening. That's what's going on. So instead, I and a couple of others sought to bring the power would be your ability to articulate the ideas and have that vote in committee, yes or no. And then from committee, if it passed committee, it would go to the Senate floor. And being heard on the Senate floor, then a vote would have to be cast, yes or no. And the Democrats, this might be fascinating to some people, but in 2 different interviews, big media interviews, one of the Democrats said, if Dusty Deevers was in charge of the Senate, it would be far more fair. Even a Democrat said that. And they know I've got a 100% conservative rating. One of the others, the minority leader, said in an interview that if the Freedom Caucus was in charge of the Senate, it would be far more fair. And that's not because we're ideologically aligned. It's not. But we believe that the voice of the people needs to be heard. That's where we stand.
I would agree that everybody's voice needs to be heard. Sharla has a question about your opponent. I'll let Sharla ask that question.
I don't have a question about his opponent, but I want to, yeah, this This is Dr. Jean Hauser, who is actually running for Senate District 32. And she is promoting herself as a conservative constitutional Christian. But I just think that this photo says a whole lot. And so they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that says a whole lot to real Republicans who are watching and paying attention to what's going on. I want to talk a little bit about State Question 840. They are collecting signatures right now, and I do believe that the Senate Bill 1027 that was passed last year falls into play with this, where they have to get a balance of signatures around the different counties. Comanche County is going to be going around next week collecting those signatures. This is a bipartisan um, opportunity, because it will give, like Senator Deevers says, all parties, that any legislator that is gone up to the state, it gives them a minimum of 3 bills to be heard, and not shut down just because of who you are, what you are, what party you stand for. So I think it's something that we all should pay attention to. Um, Before we move off of the Freedom Caucus, and you may have already addressed it, but I want to kind of maybe refocus on that. What is a misconception that you think that people have of the Oklahoma Freedom Caucus? I know in my position, Senator, that it has come up in conversations in circles in our county with other Republicans. And we have seen some of the mailers that's gone out attacking the members across the state. And so, what is, if I'm sitting here and I've never heard of it before and I don't understand it, what is a misconception that you'd like to clear up?
Well, there's probably a whole lot, but one of the misconceptions could be that the Freedom Caucus isn't that we're just obstructionists, or we are just trying to break down the process of government. And, on one level, you could say, well, yeah, it's true. We are obstructing the continual flow of tyranny that taxes and spends and treats the people like they're ATMs for more government overreach and for more corporate welfare, and shifting money away from the working middle class, who are really oftentimes paycheck to paycheck and who are trying to run their small businesses. And that money is flowing upwards to these big corporations that get tax subsidies, that get tax credits, that get all this taxpayer money, but the middle class doesn't get that. My position is, look, I want to stand in the gap for the people. This is called, so if you look back to the Magdeburg Confession of 1550, and they talked about then the doctrine of the lesser magistrates, that there was such a thing as interposition, that you stand between a higher power and the people, and you interpose, like Jesus interposed his own blood on our behalf before God. We as legislators are supposed to stand according to the Constitution and for the rights of the people, and interpose between a tyrant above them and the people, and step in. And that's what the Freedom Caucus is doing. Yes, we want to obstruct bigger and bigger government that pinches out the people and their freedoms and crushes the middle class and takes their money upward to corporate welfare, and then it takes it downward. And right now we're seeing a social welfare programs where I understand when there are certain people that are in a bad situation that might need some help. But right now we're giving money to people who can work but won't. You especially saw that even more so during COVID and the stimulus packages, and people who are often not drug tested, and then even illegals. So yes, I haven't talked to a single person at a door. I knocked 6,000 doors twice in my first election, and this time I've knocked thousands of doors. I haven't talked to a single person that has told me, I think the government is so good, it's doing so well, and I want you to go up there and become a capital creature, a swamp creature. I think that's what you need to do. No, they all talk about how broken government is and how government is crushing them and how they're not hardly doing anything to fix some of our fundamental problems, which is government induced. So they want someone who is going to obstruct the continued overreach and the crushing of our freedoms. And that's, they say, well, you can't, the Freedom Caucus is just loud and obstructive or whatever, and they can't get anything done. Let me give you an example. This was a lie that was said the other night in what was billed as a debate, but it became a forum and them taking pot shots at me. And I didn't get really the opportunity to respond. But one of the lies that was said that the Freedom Caucus hasn't passed a single bill in committee. Well, that's just absolutely not true. I passed 5 or 6 bills in committee this year. And that's not to mention the numerous other Freedom Caucus members who had a lot of bills pass committee. We had bills pass committee. We had bills pass the floor. But this is the example I want to give you about the problem that we have in the Senate. Not only are they blocking legislation and acting like dictators and tyrants, and the Freedom Caucus is calling them out on it, but there were 7 Democrats, and they all scored less than 40% on those Freedom Index scores. There were 7 Democrats that had 18 bills heard on the Senate floor. The top 7 conservative Republicans had 0 bills heard on the Senate floor. Now, do you think that that's because we who have scored at 90% or plus on those conservative index scores, that we are not running conservative legislation and that the Democrats are running more conservative legislation? That's not what it's about. They're making deals with the Democrats, and they want to shut us down because they don't want people like us, people like you and me, people like our district up there being a cog in the, being a stick in the wheel of what they're doing.
Senate Bill 1790 was a solid bill. That's an example of one that they wouldn't hear here on the floor. So
That's
if you're,
right.
that's a good demonstration.
Hey, so
one of the
the last 5 oh well we're coming down to the 45-minute mark here, and we last question tonight is in a minute and a half, what do you want people to know about your reelection, why you want them to get up and vote for you, and where they can find more information about your campaign?
Sure. Well, I'll just say this. I'm running for reelection because I believe that you all and your freedoms are worth fighting for. There's an old country song. You got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. I think there's so much pressure to bend the knee, to bow the knee and kiss the ring at the Capitol. And if you just want a bill heard, well, you're going to have to play ball. And that means compromising, oftentimes compromising your principles. They offered me a bribe last year to get a bill to the governor's desk that was unanimous in the Senate committee, unanimous on the Senate floor, unanimous in House committee, unanimous on the House floor. It was high dosage tutoring. It was focused on giving tutoring for those children that are falling behind in reading and math from kindergarten to 8th grade, but especially through 3rd grade. The teachers would have been paid $1,600 a semester. And for every child that moved up just 1 grade level, it would have given them a $1,000 bonus. So that means the teacher could have made $8,200 more a year, and it would have come from no more taxpayer dollars. It's sitting in the teacher empowerment fund. But whenever that bill came back, the appropriations chair told me, if you will vote for the budget, then we will get this bill heard on the Senate floor. I said, are you offering me a bribe? And he took offense to it, but that's exactly what it was. I said, the budget is bigger. It's one of the biggest budgets we've ever passed. I've given you numerous line items where we should be cutting the budget so that we can actually give meaningful property tax reform, meaningful income tax reform, and not this path to zero that's going to take 30 to infinite number of years because the mechanisms they put in. I said, I'm not signing the budget because it's more bloat. We are conservatives and we aren't trying to grow government. And then he said, you have forced the conversation to change up here. Now everybody's talking about property taxes and income taxes and how they're unjust because they're theft from the people's wages, and that they own those and property, that the government shouldn't own their property. You're not an owner. If that you're changing the conversation, you getting everything you want. I said, no, I'm not going to be bought. I'm not going to take a bribe. And then what else is the problem is you are the only no vote on this bill. And if there's one person out of this bill being voted on a couple hundred times, then one person can say whether that bill is going to be heard. That's another reason why I came up here to fight against this. That's a tyranny. And that's why they didn't want my bill to get heard. You know what? About 5 of those bills were filed this year with almost the exact same language that I ran last year. I'm going up because I want to continue fighting for the rights and privileges of our citizens. My first term proved something that was very clear. Oklahoma's problem is not just one bad bill, one bad budget, or one bad agency. The problem is structural. There's too much power that's moved away from the people towards agencies and lobbyists and big money corporate interests and special interests and centralized leadership. And this is exactly what the founders feared and warned us about, that the government would become a leviathan. So my reelection campaign is about restoring power back to where it belongs. It's back to parents, to taxpayers, to property owners, to local communities, to citizens, and back to even the legislators who should represent their districts instead of being managed by leadership and that oligarchy that's up there. So the work ahead, I think, is really specific. Zero income tax, property tax repeal and buy down triggers, spending caps and agency audits, corporate welfare repeal, education reform that's focused on literacy and tutoring and discipline in the classrooms that the teachers are begging for, and the parental rights and local teacher licensure, and the abolition of abortion and pornography and protection for children from porn and obscenities, and Oklahoma's businesses and workers being put first rather than us outsourcing all of our jobs and our businesses overseas and to all these other foreign workers. We have to have Senate rules reform, and we have to bring in those protections and really protect the rights that already exist that are from God for ranchers and farmers and water and energy and local control. So look, there are just a few of us. Let me just say this. We are a couple senators away. If we retain my seat and we flip a couple of other senators to an actual conservative legislator, we are a couple senators away from a conservative pro tem. And when that happens, it will be a new day for freedom in our state. So I'm not trying to be more acceptable to the Capitol. I'm trying to make the Capitol more acceptable to the people. We have to represent the people. As government expands, our freedoms contract. And I don't want to see the God-given freedoms alienated from our people. I love being from here. I am concerned for our children and their future. I'm concerned for the seniors that are getting priced out of their homes because their property taxes and insurance rates are just skyrocketing. Most of them even own their homes, and they want to give them as an inheritance to their children, but they can't keep up. And we have young people who are not even able to get into a house because of what's happened. We can fix those things, and we need to stand up with a strong, conservative, Christian backbone and say no more. This is not about electing who you think is the nicest person. It's about electing who is proven, who is articulate, can defend our values, and will stand on the Constitution and the Word of God and not cower away and not be bought by the establishment.
There you have it.
Senator, before we go,
Dusty Deevers. Go ahead. Okay, we gotta go.
We have a question. You're gonna have to give it the cliff notes on it. I came in the chat, and I don't understand what all this means, so maybe you will. But it's one question I think that we should ask because it was really the only question. What is your stance on the unconstitutionality of how the admin court system has been closing so many legal businesses in Oklahoma through the OBNDD and framing legal MMJ business as criminals to inflate the numbers and make themselves look better? They're using a shotgun approach, and Many good operators are being wrapped in it. These are Oklahoma small businesses.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Can you? There's a lot there. Can you read back? So the
How about I forward it to you? And
Yeah,
I
what
can
is
forward
what
it to
is
you, and
yeah?
you could.
What is
OBND.
that? Just give us we the show needs to end now, but give us the high executive level of OB and DD and the free the framing of the legal MMA businesses as criminals to inflate the numbers and to make themselves look good. And we'll forward this to you so you can come on next time. But can you give us the high level executive answer to that question?
So OBNDD is the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, and its role is drug law enforcement, and especially like trafficking, manufacturing, and major suppliers. But it also has a role over the medical marijuana, OMMA. I I know that there's been a high level crackdown on illegal marijuana grows, but we passed, as a state, we passed in our Constitution that medical marijuana was a right. If we're going to have it in our Constitution, we should afford them the freedoms until we change the Constitution. The people who are doing it lawfully, they have been afforded the rights and privileges to do this lawfully. So we have to abide by the law, and we shouldn't just make criminals out of people just because we might not like what they're doing. If it's according to the law, then they shouldn't be lumped in with the actual criminals, and there are a ton of them in the marijuana field in Oklahoma. And that you especially see it with the Chinese and these illegal grows and them buying up property. I've run legislation to ban Chinese and foreign land ownership because Oklahoma property needs to be for Oklahomans or Americans. So the answer is not you have to be soft on crime. That's not the answer. The answer should be more targeted enforcement, punish the guilty, protect the innocent, secure our lawfully practicing businesses, stop the trafficking networks, and make sure that state agencies answer to the people through their elected representatives. You have to go after the traffickers and the illegals, not the constitutional guardrails or the people that are actually operating according to the Constitution. And that's taking a shot at what I thought he was asking, he or she.
Senator
Thank you for
Deevers,
that
thank
answer.
you. That concludes our questions for this evening. Thank you for taking time to join us and sharing your thoughts, your legislative priorities, and your vision for the future of Senate District 32. We appreciate your willingness to engage directly with the voters and discuss the issues that matter most to Southwest Oklahoma. As we mentioned at the beginning of tonight's broadcast program, early voting starts this week for the June 16th elections. It begins this week at the Comanche County Courthouse. You voters may cast their ballots on Thursday and Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. and on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. Election day, you will go to your precincts from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Please be reminded that Precinct 13 and Precinct 38 have changed their locations. We encourage every eligible voter to take the time to learn about the candidates, study the issues, and most importantly, to vote. As informed electorate is essential to a strong and representative government. We also invite everyone to join us tomorrow evening, Monday, June 8th at 6 o'clock p.m. as we continue our election coverage. Rarchar and I will be joined by Comanche County Commissioner District 1, Ryan John, the incumbent, and his challenger, Kevin Turpin, to discuss the issues facing Comanche County and hear directly from both those candidates. Again, Senator Deevers, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you to Rarchar for co-hosting these podcasts with me and driving the machine, and to everyone who tuned in and submitted questions and participated in the discussion. Rarchar.
And thank you, everybody. This has always been a treat for us. Whether you're listening live or catching the replay later, we appreciate your support for the Comanche County Podcast. Our goal has always been simple: to provide voters with information directly from the candidates and elected officials who seek to represent you. allowing you to make informed decisions at the ballot box. If you found tonight's episode helpful, please share, like, and comment, and follow our page so you can join and stay informed about the conversation about things that impact Comanche County and you. For Sharla, Hildner, Dusty Deevers, and everyone behind the scenes, we have a lot of folks behind the scenes. I'm Rarchar Tortorello. I want to thank you. God bless you. God bless Comanche County. God bless the great state of Oklahoma. And we'll see you tomorrow night at 6. Thank you. Bye.
Night. Bye.